Hey guys, what's up? So, this one's late ass videos. Apologize for that, just things kept coming up, but finally got this one up, and it's a continuation of the topic that I put up before, by request. Before I get into it though, just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update on how things have been going. First off, I happen to be recording this on my birthday, the night of my birthday. The time of this recording, August 30th. I was thinking at first of doing some kind of like birthday stream or whatever, but if I'm going to be honest with you guys, I wasn't really feeling it. I'm recovering from work and a lot of stuff. I'm not going to lie to you guys, things have been kind of rough. So I've been, just keeping my nose to the grindstone and trying to keep my head above water in a lot of ways. I wasn't really feeling trying to do a stream. Maybe if you guys want me to, I could do like a late birthday stream thing or whatever, play games, answer questions or whatever, but we'll see. Also, I thought I was going to be putting a couple of videos mostly on sword related things. I still have reviews I need to put up, and there was one I also wanted to do on picking a one, because I think I want to kind of like update some of the things that I said before about getting a new sword. However, it's going to be a while before I can hold one, because hurt my hand about a month ago. Long story short, I banged the top of my palm against the gear shift of my car, ended up aggravating the tendon on my middle finger. It still hurts. Well, it hurts if I close my hand. I have to basically, as long as my hand's like this, it's fine. But as soon as I try to make a fist with it, the tendon there hurts. Long story short, I was told that I have something called trigger finger, which I've never heard of before. But basically, I have to keep this immobilized in order for it to heal. I got that diagnosis a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to wait a couple more weeks, and if I still don't see improvement, then I'm going to see if there's anything else I can do, because right now, because of the way this hand is, and because of the fact that I can't do this without pain, that means I can't hold a sword. And this is my right hand. Yeah, so that happened. But you guys aren't here to hear about my woes or any of that stuff. You don't care about this. So let's get to something that you guys are interested in. At least some of you guys have expressed interest to me. And that's on what's been going on at Shaolin Temple. I thought that the second video I would do on it would be explaining a little bit more about the culture there, like, its impact on Chinese martial arts and how it was perceived and how we got to this point now. But I recently found out about, events going on over there that I think are worth mentioning. So I want to touch on those things now and what they may mean, and then we can kind of go a little bit more into, the overall big picture of Shaolin. So first things first, as you may already know, because I brought it up before, the old abbot, the abbot that was there before, Abbot Shi Yinle, he's been ousted from Shaolin for corruption charges, and he's still being investigated for it. He's still, I think they had arrested him, but he's basically been ousted, and he's been replaced by a new abbot known as I'm butchering these names, and I apologize. I am so sorry. I'm trying to pronounce it correctly, but it is Shi Yinle. And the interesting thing about him is that he seems to be the opposite of Shi Yinle. Shi Yinle, as you know, they used to call him the CEO abbot. Like he pretty much commercialized Shaolin Temple. He was the reason why, there was so much commercialization on so much of it. He's the reason why, like, they were sending monks all around the world doing shows. They were selling souvenirs. The temple pretty much turned into a major tourist attraction. There was a lot going on, but there was also a lot of corruption going on, which was pretty much swept under the rug until recently. And I personally believe that he must have pissed off the wrong official or something, or probably got too big for his britches or something, because they took that dude down fast. Like, he's not even considered, like, he hasn't only been kicked out of the temple, he's not even a monk anymore. Like, the Buddhist Association pretty much, they stripped him of his rank. Like, you know, he's done for. But the new guy, Shi Yinle, that guy he used to head a different Buddhist temple, in fact, the oldest one in China, if I remember correctly. He used to be the abbot of White Horse Temple in Luoyang. And I know I'm pretty mispronouncing that. Luoyang. I'm sorry for any Chinese people listening. I am so sorry if I'm butchering the names. But he was known as a very humble abbot and a very religious-minded abbot, very spiritual-minded abbot. He was more down to earth. He, you know, had cultivated that kind of reputation for, you know, mostly focusing on spiritual matters and reciting scripture and that sort of thing. But now they've appointed him to Shaolin. And it seems an obvious reason why. Like, if you're trying to remove the image of corruption from there, you might as well bring in, like, the super monk to run things, right? Like, first you had a guy who pretty much didn't seem to have any sort of Buddhist morals at all, and now you're putting in a dude who is like, you know, that's what his focus is. And already he's making some sweeping changes to the temple, so much so that several people have already left because they found it too rough. So here's what once he took over, he instituted 5 sweeping reforms, so to speak. He's halted all commercial activities. That includes the whole monk world tour thing. So don't expect to see, you know, monks going around the world doing their flips and stuff like that anytime soon. He's banned high-priced consecration rituals, which, wow, I didn't even know about that one, but it makes a lot of sense when I think about it, that that's something they would be charging money for. He's removed temple shops. Okay, and he is promoting monastic self-sufficiency through farming and overhauling income distribution by eliminating previously criticized fees. So to kind of break all of this down, just to sum it all up, all the ways that they were making money questionably, like all the, you know, big commercialization practices, you know, all the type of, I guess some people would call it like, you know, sort of capitalist practices of like, let's sell this, let's offer that, let's pay a fee for this, you know, all that's been shut down. And life at the temple itself, he is focusing more on promoting hard work and Buddhist life and spiritualism and, like, you know, kind of like, you know, more of a monastic life. What do we mean by that? Well, monks are now required, according to this article I'm reading, they're required, all monks there, they have to participate in morning prayers at 4:30 in the morning, followed by farming and then Zen martial arts practice in the afternoon. No more mobile phones, at least hanging out, like that was something that's kind of funny when you think about it, like the fact that, you know, monks were walking around with their mobile phones. Some of them apparently were so addicted to them that they would literally have headphones on, listening to their phones while there was supposed to be Buddhist chanting going on. Yeah, he's putting an end to that. No phones on temple grounds. Now, like, screen time has been reduced to just 30 minutes a day, and it's just for accessing information. No entertainment whatsoever. So they're not going to be using it for music or playing video games or whatever the hell they were doing with it. Yeah, the phone is strictly now going to be a phone. That's it. And screen time, 30 minutes. That's it. It's like they're almost dealing with school children, you know. The diet has also become way stricter. They're going straight up hardcore with vegetables, maybe some tofu. Any meat dishes or any other stuff that goes beyond that, gone. Like, this is going to be hardcore Buddhist stuff. Apparently, Chinese citizens have been kind of poking fun at this change. They've been calling it the new rules over there, now calling it Buddhist 996, which is referring to the work culture in certain Chinese, I think, tech companies, where it's supposed to be like employees are working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. and they're now making a joke saying this is the Buddhist version of that. They're all now having to work hard as monks with a similar, working sort of lifestyle. So these sweeping changes have not been, happily accepted by many of the monks who had gotten really used to the more lax and somewhat questionable life that they had been living previously. More than 30 monks have already left the temple, at least at the time of this article that I'm reading. And this article was written back in August 8th. So, yeah, like they've already said, we're done. They left, which I'm sure you're thinking, good. Let all the fake monks get the hell out of there and have the real Shaolin monks, actually represent the temple. It seems to be, these reforms seem to be doing its job. Like the ones that people feel were tarnishing the image of the place, yeah, they're leaving as if it's like a sinking ship. Like all the rats are jumping, So, yeah, a lot of people are looking at this as a positive, though some monks over there whose job it originally was to bring in revenue, and I'm going to kind of give them the benefit of the doubt. Like I'm pretty sure there was some monks there that weren't like hardcore, give me the money. I'm pretty sure, because alms, and donations and collecting that sort of thing, that is a part of a monk's life too, at least, traditionally, to bring in revenue to the temple. But it was supposed to be like, people giving freely, like you're asking for humble donations. You're not just turning the temple into a sideshow for people to throw money at and to be entertained by. So it's like they're trying to tone all that down, but the people there who used to have more humble ways of bringing in revenue, they're now saying that, okay, this is a little bit too strict. We can't make money here at all. Like, they're not just shutting off all the questionable ways of bringing in revenue, but pretty much all ways. Like most of them, like again, there are no monk world tours. There is no, special shows going on at the temple. They're not selling anything at the temple anymore. They're shutting down all the shops that were surrounding the temple. So it's like the people who are there to make money, they're like, there's no reason for us to be here. We might as well just freaking leave. So it's interesting, this major shift going on where it's like, yeah, Shaolin is going to be strictly a place to promote Buddhism, and the monks who will stay here are going to be living a Buddhist monk life. You're going to do your prayers, you're going to farm, and then you're going to be doing more, Zen meditations in the form of Chinese martial arts practice. Because, again, at the temple, Kung Fu practice, especially these days, was supposed to be a way to develop. It was for self-cultivation in a form of moving meditation. It wasn't something to do to just go around and make money, So I am pretty sure after a couple of years of this, there's going to be a completely different vibe there as far as like, if you want to come here, you better be ready to live that more humble, strict monk life. Yeah, I've been trying to see if they were going to be halting, like, students going over there to learn martial arts, because that was something else that became fairly popular, before, Shi Yinle had been ousted. And now I'm wondering if they're going to be cutting that down as well. Time will tell. I guess if, with a little bit more research, I'll find out. But I'm pretty sure that if they are going to be continuing that, it is not whatever kind of lax measures or whatever creature comforts foreign students may have had going there. I am quite certain a lot of that's going to be cut out. I doubt very much that they're going to be like, oh, we'll make an exception for you foreigners. They're going to make, no, you want to come here, you're going to be living the Buddhist life or else. You're going to be living the Shaolin monk lifestyle. Which, to be fair, a lot of people want to live that life when they go there to begin with. I mean, that's what they've heard of. And it's not to say that that wasn't there before. Even with all the commercialization going on, there was still kind of a strict regimented life. Again, when Rantoni was speaking of his time training at the temple, he was pretty much talking about how, strict things were, how disciplined you needed to be, how hardcore things were. And that was during Shi Yinle's time running the temple. So, I'm not trying to say it was all fun and games over there. It's just that there was a little too much fun and games for a place that was supposed to be like, Shaolin. That's not what you don't expect the place to kind of turn into what it's become, what it became. Straight up a business rather than a Buddhist center. So, with all that said, and again, I will put links in the description to the articles that I referenced so you can read more into what's going on over there. I want to kind of turn things back around to the martial arts side of things. Like, what is this going to mean for Chinese martial arts there? Honestly, I don't know. I have suspicions on how things are going to go. But they're just that. They're suspicions. They're conjecture. It's not fact. So I can't sit here and tell you, oh yeah, I know exactly how this is the way it's going to be developing. No. But I can at least give you what I suspect is going to happen. First off, it's curious to me that the Chinese government is so far all on board with this shift. I mean, well, in some ways it makes perfect sense that they would be on board with this, because the Shaolin Temple, being synonymous with corruption, it's not just bad for Shaolin's reputation, but it also kind of reflects a bit on the Chinese government itself. You have to remember that Shaolin Temple was a form of soft power for that nation. It's one of the ways that they were going to be spreading their culture, their influence, popularity, and for it now to be synonymous with, well, the things that was, associated with it, that's not just, again, it's going to be a blow to the government, because it's like, how did you allow this to go on? And, that sort of thing, that this is expected in China. Like, they have to kind of wipe that away if they want to continue using Shaolin as a form of soft power. And they also have to make sure that there is, at least give the appearance of swift justice being done. They have to, to use their term, they have to save face here. This is like, oh yeah, this crap is going on. We will not tolerate it. We will, be prosecuting this guy with the fullest extent of the law, and we're going to make sure somebody goes over there to clean things up. And right now, he's over there cleaning things up rather harshly. But what I find curious is that money, that revenue, that prestige, a lot of it had to have been going to funding the government as well. It couldn't just all have been for the temple. Maybe that was part of the reason why. Maybe he was keeping stuff too much for himself. Who knows? I don't know. This is all conjecture. But considering how much revenue, how much was associated, how much prestige, reputation, and money was being brought in, it's kind of interesting that the government now would be like, yeah, you can shut all that down. We don't care. We don't care. All that, revenue, whatever. You'll be fine. We'll be fine without it. We got many other ways of, making money. We got the tech sector. Who knows? Maybe that is what they're thinking. Like, we got our tech is growing, getting more world influence. You guys might be surprised to know, for instance, that China has one of the largest electric car manufacturers in the world. I know most people here, when they think electric cars, they think Tesla, but that's just here as in the U.S. The rest of the world? No, the rest of the world is BYD. Yeah, BYD. Look that company up and look at how much of the world's share of electric cars they actually have, and trucks and vehicles. Yeah, the world is a different place than the United States economically. There's a shift going on economically around the world that Americans are not ready for. They haven't been paying attention. That's a whole other video. That's a whole other video if you guys are interested in that. But let's just say things ain't all sweet economically. Let me get back to this topic. Anyway, the Chinese government, the state of China, the republic, they have their ways of bringing in revenue. So maybe they're just thinking we can put Shaolin on hold for a while. But I don't, it's kind of surprising to me to think that, oh yeah, we could just shut that down indefinitely. I honestly feel that they're going to try to find a more suitable way to kind of bring that back. I wouldn't be surprised that after a year, maybe 2 years of cleaning house, they will then open things back up a little bit more, but in a way that's going to be a lot more pleasing to the public eye. Much more palpable for the public to watch. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they might bring shows again, but instead of monks going around doing crazy backflips and showing off like the old circus tricks that kung fu guys used to do for years, maybe instead they make it more spiritually based. Like, they might make it a show, but it's going to be more about Buddhism itself. They might show them chanting more. They might show their kung fu more as moving meditation. You might see a lot less wushu and a lot more of their traditional kung fu practice. I wouldn't be surprised if they bring in some more folk practitioners to help kind of coach the monks there on the traditional Shaolin martial arts rather than the contemporary wushu stuff. But then again, I'm kind of 50-50 on that. I wouldn't be surprised if they still kept 50-50. Because contemporary wushu is another form of soft power. But there was already a lot of criticisms on the wushu stuff being associated with Shaolin. Shaolin Temple is supposed to have its own particular style of martial arts. So, all the crazy animal forms and all the like wushu type gymnastics and things like that. I wouldn't be surprised if that was toned down some. But then again, who knows? They might still keep it, but still try to call it a form of moving meditation because it brings in, it brings in customers. It brings in people willing to watch it. But then again, if they are trying to bring things more down to earth and more spiritual, that might not work. I mean, I wouldn't think it would work. If I was running the show, I would actually kind of cut a lot of that out and bring in more of the actual Shaolin martial arts that people expect. And then if you're going to be using that as more of a ritualistic thing, then, show that off and then make it more like, okay, anybody willing to make a donation to see this, like, who knows how they're going to put that up. I don't know, again, if they are planning on cutting out people coming to the temple to train there. All the different tours and these seminars, they will sometimes have people that are willing to train there for 3 months or so on, or the hardcore people who are willing to go there and live as monks for years, I'm pretty sure they'll keep the doors open for that. But for the people who are like, oh yeah, you can come over to Shaolin for 3 months and train, like a Shaolin camp, I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of shut that down for a little bit, and then if they bring it back, it's going to be like, if you're going to be here, you're going to be here, and they're going to be training in, traditional Chinese martial arts. I don't know if after these people train there for a certain period of time and then they go back to their countries, if they're going to be sanctioned to do that. Because there were a lot of people who went over there, they train for a bit, then they leave, and then they start opening up their own Shaolin Kung Fu schools. And that's another form of, soft power and possibly revenue going back to the temple, or at the very least, having a link. But, and I mean, there was already a lot going on with how Shaolin was going to be allowing, quote-unquote, people to represent their martial arts. There was already a bit of grumbling going on with certain tournaments and events where Shaolin students would show up and, they would compete, showing off their forms and their techniques and all that. Those of you who've been to a martial arts tournament, you know what it's like when you're doing forms demonstrations, forms competition, things like that. And the Shaolin ones were beginning to reward people with the more flashier ones rather than those doing the more traditional forms and having a much more solid foundation in their technique, their stance work, how clear their techniques were, how strong their punches and kicks looked. Like, that stopped being the things that got them high scores. It was more like how flashy did you look? How prettier did you look? How good was your performance? How more eye-pleasing it was. And that was beginning to turn off a lot of people training in Shaolin. Like, hey, wait a minute. This isn't Shaolin Kung Fu. Like, what the hell are you doing? I have a feeling there's going to be a reining in of that, but then again, it all depends on just how much wushu is going to be tolerated at the temple. I mean, one could say that, this new abbot, Shi Yinle, is going to, probably rein a lot of that in, because he's a lot more grounded in spiritual practice rather than in commercialization. And most likely he might be thinking that the wushu side of things is too much leaning on the more of the commercial side and not so much of the spiritual side of Shaolin. But we don't know. Again, the articles I read was talking more on a general term of how Shaolin's supposed to be, but it didn't focus too much on how the martial arts aspect of things are going to change, other than demanding that they engage in their kung fu practice as part of their monastic life every day, after, of course, the prayers and the farming. So, again, we don't know. Maybe I'll know later on, but right now, all I'm giving is a bit of conjecture. My suspicions are that for about a year, maybe 2 years, I'll say a year, there's going to be a large shutting down, clamping down a lot of the wilder stuff going on there. They're going to cut down the commercialization and all that. And then they're going to open things up a little bit more in a more sanctioned way to bring revenue and tourism in. And the martial arts are probably going to be kind of changed a bit to represent more of that moving meditation that they say it's supposed to be at Shaolin, rather than something that is supposed to razzle-dazzle you as you watch it. We shall see if I'm correct. All of this, though, ultimately is going to, at the very least, help to, clean up the reputation of the place. Because I know there were a lot of people over the years, some of them would, I would have conversations with the martial artists, and they were looking at Shaolin going more and more like, man, it's turning too much into a tourist trap over there. Which is a shame, because, again, even with Shi Yinle running the place, there were still people going over there living that life. Again, check out Ron Tony's videos on it, that were hardcore training in it. But there's some people I know who are like, it's all wushu stuff. Like, the hardcore stuff's not there. It's like, if you want to really... there were some people literally saying if you wanted to learn real Shaolin Kung Fu, you were better off learning it from somebody outside the temple. Like, go to a folk master or something, or go to Taiwan. That's not a... It's not a good statement, okay? It doesn't reflect well on the place. That may change in a few years. It looks like things will change on that aspect in a few years. The corruption certainly looks like it's going to be toned down a bit. How long that will last, though, remains to be seen. Politics and, things are a lot murkier and a lot more complicated than they may seem on the surface. Let's just put it that way. But time will tell. Right now, it is suitable that things be cleaned up over there. Let's just say that. So that's my talk on that. I will do at least one more where I just simply talk about Shaolin Temple as a whole and how... I already got a big freaking long video just on, the misconceptions on Shaolin. And those of you who are interested in that, I'll put a link in there. You can watch it if you hadn't seen it before. But I want to kind of do a little bit more of an overview on just like, its reputation, its influence on martial arts, particularly modern martial arts, like when people started, really getting into it from the 70s onwards, and how it became what it's seen as now and where it may be going. I want to do at least a video on that, among others. I hope this one entertained you at the very least. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully I'll have something, that will entertain you further on this topic, as well as other videos that are really near to get into. And yeah. Catch you guys later.